Welcome to BNC Live. I'm Laverne McGee on this Thursday, August 26th, the dark day, as we watch what's happening unfold in Afghanistan.
It's a hard day today. As you know, 2 suicide bombers assessed to have been ISIS fighters detonated in the vicinity of the Abbey Gate at Hamid Karzai International Airport and in the vicinity of the Baron Hotel, which is immediately adjacent.
There is chaos in Kabul. Right now, officials are telling us that at least 12 U.S. service members are dead. At least 15 others are injured. And there are dozens of Afghan casualties. President Biden is in the Oval Office right now being briefed on this developing situation. I want to quote now, people were hurled everywhere. That is how an eyewitness describes the gruesome scene near an airport gate following 2 suicide attacks. Officials say ISIS-K is to blame, and the U.S. will go after them if they can be found. They are looking for them, they have said. And this violence comes as the clock quickly ticks down to President Biden's August 31st deadline to withdraw from Afghanistan. Joining us right now from Washington is BNC's Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent, Naira Huq. She's been following all of the developments. Naira, it's very clear there were stern warnings before this attack that terrorists were targeting Hamid Karzai International Airport. But exactly what were people waiting outside the airport gate supposed to do about this?
Well, that's the problem we see right now, Laverne, is that there are people who are desperate to escape Afghanistan, whether they be U.S. citizens.
Welcome back to BNC. We are continuing our special coverage of the crisis unfolding in Afghanistan. Joining me now is intelligence and counterterrorism expert Brian Boyd. Brian, thank you so much for joining us. You have a distinguished resume and history. Please tell us about your background in this area.
I'm originally from Washington, D.C. I have a master's in forensics. I was also served as a senior intelligence analyst for the Justice Department. I was a supervisor of intelligence analysis at a Treasury agency and helped create the Intelligence Analysis Division of the Joint Special Operations Command, which has authority over SEAL Team 6, Delta, and Special Operations Forces. I'm a former Green Beret. I have a very crazy background, but I was an intelligence expert for the government.
An amazing background, and first and foremost, thank you for your service to this country. Let's talk about the explosion that happened outside the Kabul airport. It's believed to have been carried out by the Islamic State group ISIS-K, more radical than the Taliban, more radical even than ISIS, the main group. Can you tell us about what you're seeing unfold here and explain to us how this is happening right now in front of our eyes when we have been trying to avoid this for years?
Well, first of all, we have to understand who conducted the bombing, at least what we know so far. ISIS-K is a group that was part of the Taliban for years, but they broke off as a splinter group and swore allegiance to Abu Bakr Baghdadi, who was the original founder of ISIS in 2014. And they, like the Taliban, are enemies of the Western nations, including the United States. But ISIS-K is unique because their enemy is also the Taliban as well as the Shia. So they, between the 2 emirs of ISIS-K and the emir of Taliban, are vying for control. And they're sworn enemies of each other. So this ISIS-K is trying to make, according to the Taliban, make the Taliban look bad. The Taliban is blaming Americans for not providing security. And we're dependent on the Taliban and their eloquent group to try and provide security in this multi-ring encirclement of the Kabul airport.
So what does President Biden do about this?
I think he has 3 options, having been in the options business, and we always do the what-if scenarios, and we play out options for years, especially in the counterterrorism business. You have several scenarios. He could either do the gambit that was offered during the Trump administration of threatening the Taliban that we will drone strikes in your towns and villages if you harm any hair of an American or an Afghan friend, or you can go back and renegotiate and depend on the Taliban for security. The problem is if you take the more stringent report path and do bombings of the drones, we know where these people are. We know who they are, we know where they are, we know their houses, their homes. Our intelligence is absolutely phenomenal. We don't have on-the-ground intelligence, but our capabilities of knowing who these people are is not difficult to take them out. Problem is this. I think the concern of the White House, if they do that, it'll escalate the situation. The other choice, which I think is possibly prudent, is to say to the Taliban, look, you've created this crush of humanity desperate to get out of Kabul. It's impossible logistically to get all these people out. Why don't extend this for several days or a week? I think the political situation of the White House is they're determined to stay on the August 31st deadline. So it's a catch-22. In my mind, if I was briefing the White House, I'd say, why don't we negotiate an extension so we can clearly exit these people? Right now, we don't have a withdrawal, we have a rout. This is not a withdrawal, it's not a controlled withdrawal, it's a rout, it's a surrender, it's a panic leaving a state under the pressure of a deadline that the Taliban has dictated and doubled down on this White House. I think the president's in a quandary. He has two choices. Either extend the deadline to effectively remove these people from danger, or just leave and let the chips fall where they may. That seems to be the two choices.
Well, you're kind of making it sound like the Taliban's in control and President Biden has lost control of the situation. And we know that, of course, the only way that seems to be out is Hamid Karzai Airport in Afghanistan. Did they not come up with a backup plan? As you said, there is incredible intelligence in this area. Why is this the only way out? Why this airport? Is there nowhere else that we can get these people out of there?
When the scenario began, if you can, I don't want to compare and contrast politics, but the difference in the previous administration, the negotiation with the Taliban was a hard over conditional withdrawal. They had to guarantee safety, and we had a threat attached to it, according to former Secretary of State Pompeo, that we will take out your villages and towns of where you live because we know where you live. He was famous for saying that. With the current decision-making in place, the different scenario is we are being pushed into an August 31 deadline because that was promised by President Biden. He wants to stick with the plan. He intends to make that work. Problem is we have lost control. The Taliban cannot control all of its factions. It is a disciplined, well-steeled, 20-year veteran of war. Our soldiers come and go on yearly tours, but a lot of those people can't be controlled. And the Taliban cannot control ISIS-K because they are an enemy of the Taliban. So we're depending on a mixture of people on the other side to control and provide security. This is why this happened. This is a predictable event. When anytime you have a crush, it's like holding fire in a theater and leaving only one exit. We quietly withdrew our troops from 9 airports or some number of airfields. And the problem is you don't remove your military first before you take out the civilians and you remove all your equipment.
Brian,
so this is a backwards scenario.
So, Brian, does that therefore mean that you put troops back in? What if President Biden were to say, we got to send troops back? We got to send American sons and daughters back there to get this under control. Is that the answer, or is that going to bring more chaos? Is that going to bring criticism? Is that an option that you think the president should consider?
It's already occurred. 11 days ago, when they took, or 12 days ago, when they took over the airport, we were withdrawing 2,500 troops, the same number that Trump was withdrawing. But when this thing started to become a rout, I'm not calling it a rout, it's not a withdrawal, it's a rout. We got tons of people crushing to get there, to get out of that airport. What we did, or what this administration did, is we recommitted 5,000 troops, 2 Marine divisions and the 82nd Airborne at Fort Bragg, where I used to be stationed. And when you put back 5,000 people on the 2,500, now you've actually committed more troops into harm's way. And these people are part of the ones that I'm sure were attacked when they're trying to provide security to get people out. So we've already exercised the scenario of putting troops back. What's going to happen if more deaths occur? What is the American public going to demand of this president, this White House? It's going to be a push come shove, and the problem is going to be on this side of the ocean, not over there.
What happens on this side of the ocean? That was going to be what I asked you next. Do we now go back into terror alert mode in America, where there are possible attacks on this country here on American soil?
The Taliban's, you have to look at what the Taliban wants. The Taliban wants two things. They want control, as they had in 96 before we tossed them out in 2001 after 9/11. Number two, they don't want any Westerners. They don't want Soviets. They don't want Americans. They want to be a totally Islamic state. The difference is it's under Sharia law, which is very strict, and it's going to take away a lot of the rights of women and children. They're not going to be able to go to school. They won't be able to wear Western clothes. They'll be forced to wear burqas, and it's going to push them into an ancient problem. They're already killing and executing and hanging and whipping people and women. That's already very obvious. So they don't have a desire to attack America. It's the groups within Afghanistan, the ISIS, the Al-Qaedas. These are the ones who have a scenario where they want to attack America. And the reason we went over there is because it was a breeding ground for Al-Qaeda. When Bush told the emir of Afghanistan, when we were trying to go after bin Laden in 2001, he said, give them up and stop providing these Al-Qaeda training camps. When they refused, the Bush administration pulled together a coalition of nations, and we invaded a month later in October of 2001. We're in the same quagmire. The question is, are we going to have problems with groups over there under the Taliban control, or vying for control with Afghanistan, much like the ISIS-K? And they're the ones we have to worry about. It's not going to be, the world's not going to be a safer space, not going to be a safer place. We can talk about other countries too, but we're not going to get into a deeper scenario.
Unfolding here.
I'm sorry.
Brian, once again, thank you for your service, and thank you, Brian, for your service, and thank you so much for joining us here on BNC Live. And stay with us, everyone. We'll have much more news coming up after this quick break. Again, this is BNC.